Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro New Zealand, the podcast series dedicated to exploring technology-related insights with market-leading guests. I'm your host, Jamie Hall, and today I'm here with Laura Peddie, NZ Poly Portfolio Leader, and James Ware, Greater Asia Alliance Director at HP. In this episode, we dive into the advancing world of collaboration and meeting room simplification. We discuss Poly's integration with HP, insights from the Work Relationship Index, and where next for collaboration. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts. Welcome along, guys. It's awesome to have you here. And another episode where we've got two guests along, a little bit of extra technical kind of putting things together, but it's awesome to have you here and really excited about it. All right, so I'm going to jump straight in. Tell us a bit about your careers to date and leading up to your roles now.
Yeah, so look, firstly, thanks, Jamie, for having us here today. Really excited. So for me, I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. I started off my career in reseller land and have had the benefit of working across all of our vendors there. And then I moved into distribution and worked with you here at Ingram for a few years. Again, looking after Polycom as a BDM. And then I have now spent the last 4 years at Poly as our territory manager, where basically I am anything and everything to do with Poly.
Awesome. James.
Yeah, great to be here. I've been in the IT industry for a while, but in the collaboration space since 2010. Seems like quite a long time ago, but back in the day where an immersive telepresence room was over $1 million.
Wow.
And even a chair for that kind of room would be about $3,000. And if you roll forward now, and you can probably get a meeting room for the same price as a chair that we were selling all that time ago, which is pretty incredible. But the requirement's the same. People want to connect. People want to have a great experience, and it's a great industry to be in. I've always been involved in the channel. I've always been customer-facing, and I've always been very closely connected to our alliance partners. Currently, I'm the Greater Asia Director for Alliances, and that region spans from Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia, and more importantly, New Zealand. New Zealand's a great...
Thanks for adding that, by the way.
New Zealand's it's always been a great market to be in, and it's great to be here today.
Awesome. And like you just mentioned, obviously your role spans multiple countries. Laura, you've been really focused in New Zealand, but had some great exposure to lots of different areas there. Give us a bit of an update, I guess, on your day-to-day as it currently sits.
Yeah, look, for me, no day is ever the same. But to be honest, it's one of the things I really love about this role. As I said before, I've had the benefit of working across all different modes of the channel, and I get to continue that on today. So I could be working with our channel partners on enablement or a deal. I could be working with our distribution partners on promotions and stock and, again, how do we better deliver our message to our channel partners all the way through to our end users, right? And that's probably what I love the most is really helping our end users understand, what does good collaboration look like and what solutions could we provide for them.
Great. James.
Yeah, it's very similar to Laura. Like no day is ever the same, but maybe this week is a typical example, and it's been great to be over here, meeting customers, meeting partners, really trying to listen and understand the kind of key challenges that they're facing. But then perhaps more importantly is kind of educating on the HP vision, where we're positioning ourselves, and trying to ensure that either our partners are armed with the right information to be able to give the customer really what they're looking for. And then, our industry is changing so quickly, is making sure customers are aware of what's available today, and they're not kind of making decisions based on information that's 6 months or even a week old kind of thing. So, very varied, but always kind of learning and listening to our community.
Now, I might be answering this in the question, but what's kept you in this space? Because you both got an extensive experience in the collaboration space. Obviously, it's changed over time, but what's kept you here?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I've just really watched enjoying the pace of change. if I look back to when I started in collaboration, I used to watch people walk into rooms and avoid the remote to be able to start a meeting, right? Today, we're now at this place where you can walk into the room with one touch of a button, you're into your meeting, you sit down, you're being automatically framed. And so I think it's really enjoying, to see those outcomes and ultimately how it's just become second nature for people to collaborate today.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's a people business. I mentioned from data storage. Data storage is very different from the collaboration space. And it's that connecting people and bringing people together that perhaps couldn't meet face-to-face, I think is a great industry to be in. The example that I'll use, and I see it time again, is when we met in person for the first time this morning, but we'd been on video calls before. And that sense of when you meet someone in face-to-face for the first time, but you feel that you already know them because you've seen them on a video call. And I think that kind of human connection that we provide over a distance and the people side of the business is one of the main reasons why I love it.
Over the last several years, we've seen some really exciting acquisitions. I'd love to quiz you both on that. First of all, James, from your perspective, from a regional view, I'd love to hear your perspective on that Plantronics, Polycom, Poly, and now HP sort of integration. And then Laura will come to you in a moment with some other questions on it.
Yeah, perfect. I might just go back in time a little bit because I think it gives a great perspective on where we've come from and where we're going. But it was way back in 1939. Can you believe that? That's a long time ago. But that's when Bill and Dave came together. That's the formation of Hewlett-Packard, and that was in a garage in a little place called Palo Alto. Now, essentially, that was the birthplace of Silicon Valley. So we're taking that heritage from 1939 right through to the present day.
That was an audio oscillator, I think, was the original.
Yeah. And their first customer, relatively well known still to this day, and it's two brands, right? HP and the first customer, which was Walt Disney. Actually, very few companies that are still around today that were on the stock exchange back then. If we move forward a bit, so Plantronics, which was a huge brand, and a lot of people may recognize that from a headset perspective, that has a heritage dating back to the 60s. And it came about from pilots needing to be able to speak to ground control and having a lightweight headset where they could be heard clearly. And that has continued to today with people requiring to be heard, and you think about call centers and all of the different uses. And it doesn't seem so long ago, but 1990 and the iconic Polycom brand came about. And that was really the innovation of the conference phone. And that was the first time where you had a situation that multiple people in a meeting room were able to communicate at the same time to another meeting room with multiple people in. Like before then, everyone would have been on their own handset or a single wire-to-wire connection. So you've got that innovation of three organizations that then more recently Plantronics acquired Polycom, that became Poly, and now being acquired by the iconic HP organization under the One HP brand.
Great. Now, Laura, from a New Zealand perspective, I think that integration's gone really well. It's been well received in market from as far as we can tell. But why do you think it's worked so well? And maybe share a little bit about that from a New Zealand perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gone very well for us. I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that we're early adopters in New Zealand, right? We really like to lean into new technologies and understand what they might mean for our customers. And I think if we look at our channel partners, ultimately they've been able to see what this acquisition means for them and their customers and the benefits that that's going to provide in providing an end-to-end solution for them. In addition to that, our brand recognition is massive, right? HP's brand loyalty in market is significant. And we've really seen partners who maybe weren't working with us as Poly really kind of adapt and engage and understand how that entire portfolio can enable them to grow their business. And we've seen some of those partners grow year on year, quarter on quarter, whereas I say maybe we didn't work with them in the past.
I think from a distribution perspective, I've certainly seen acquisitions over the years. Some go smooth, some not so smooth. But it's been great to see the collaboration, even from a very early stage. I think there was some great bundles and collaborations that were, very tactical, but then there was also that strategy that I think everyone saw, which I think really helped. So it's awesome to see it. So in preparation for this conversation, James, we discussed like a link between Polycom and Poly and HP prior to even the acquisition. Maybe talk us through that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's a great story and something that came about as leaders were coming together and talking about the vision statements and the heritage of the two organizations. And we didn't realize how connected HP and Poly were. But it actually goes back to the late 60s. And there was a fairly famous event, 1969, and many people may remember the Neil Armstrong and NASA, the first man on the moon. Now, what people don't know is underneath that spacesuit, he was actually wearing a Plantronics headset. So those famous words, one small step, one giant leap for mankind, they were actually coming through on a Plantronics headset. So that was the story that we were telling. That was kind of our introductory moment. But what we didn't realize is at the same time, a long-term customer for HP was NASA. So all of the compute back then was from HP. So really right from the outset, the two organizations had very much been partnering together. We look at now, and it's still very much about the future of work. And it's still going back to that Neil Armstrong days around connecting people. How do we make people more fulfilled in what they do? Imagine the scenario if Neil had landed on the moon and there was no one listening, his colleagues weren't there, that sense of connection. So that's really something that we're focused on still today, is connecting people.
I think that's really interesting. And, being a bit cheeky here, but, working from anywhere, I think you can't really get much bigger than that, can you? Now, from a Kiwi perspective, how are we doing with hybrid work? Do you think we're leading the way? Do you think we're lagging behind? I'm interested in both your takes on that.
Yeah, flexible work is not new, right? I think Kiwis have been doing it for a long time. But how it's implemented within each organisation is very, very different. We see some organisations where they have enabled their users to work from home. Through COVID, they said, right, go and get what you need to have a great experience. But on the flip side, we also see other organisations where maybe they do have users working from home, but they don't have the best tools to be able to do that. And ultimately, it's really impacting that productivity that they're getting out of those users. So, yes, as a culture, we lean towards flexible working environments, but I think we've still got a little bit of way to go to make it optimal.
And from that greater Asia perspective, where do you kind of see us fitting?
Yeah, so same, different, right? The markets have common challenges, but then there's also a difference as well. I think from a New Zealand perspective, New Zealanders have always been early adopters of technology. It's a great market for innovation. And I think perhaps we see the speed of change here even quicker maybe than some of the other regions that I work in. And if I just look at the conversations that we've had since I've been here for the last week, there was huge disruption around COVID. Everyone working from home, everyone being forced to work from home. But perhaps what's different for the New Zealand space is then the coming back to the office. But I think we're seeing that transition to the office a little bit quicker in this market than others. And maybe some regions are averaging 2 or 3 days a week. But I think here in New Zealand, it's more leaning towards the 4 or 5. And that's putting an immense pressure on the workspace. and office spaces in some of your key cities. Yeah, so we've seen the coming back to the office has certainly been rapid from a New Zealand perspective. The other interesting thing, though, I think is around budget constraint. And so we've certainly heard that both from customers and partners in market, that there's significant pressure on spending now. And so that what that means from an HP perspective is we have to be focused on two things. We've got to be focused on that quality of experience, ensuring that customers are really getting the best experience when we're talking about collaboration, but also delivering value for money. And so combining that too, I think it's important in any region, but certainly what we've heard is that is a really key consideration right now in this market.
I think that's really interesting. From a distribution perspective, we certainly saw potentially a lag at the start to return to the office, but then I think it's just rapidly sped up and maybe past some other countries in the process, but I feel like we probably were a little bit late on that, and then all of a sudden we were right there. So interesting, very interesting. Okay, you guys have done some amazing study and research in all of this area, and and we'll include a link in the description for anyone that wants to look at it in more detail. But it's called the Work Relationship Index. But I'd love to get your thoughts on those on that report. Tell us about how wide the study went.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that one. I've been involved in a lot of customer roundtables over the past 2 years, and we're trying to have that thought leadership conversation, and we're talking about culture and trends and really trying to provide insight. And where a lot of that insight and the conversation or the discussion is coming from, as you mentioned, this relationship with work index. It's now in its second year. We surveyed over 16,000 knowledge workers around the world. And the scary statistic, the kind of headline, only 28% of individuals that responded thought that they had a healthy relationship with work, which it's pretty low, right? And it's quite concerning. There were 6 factors, if you like, that as we dive deeper into the analysis, and it's things like leadership. People are really looking to leaders within their organization to drive change and to provide leadership to staff. And that's around empathy, but also people-centric decisions. People want to know that organizations are changing and changing based on what their requirements are. Some of those requirements are skills. Like look at AI and all of the changes that are going on right now. Individuals need to be trained and feel that they're getting the right skill sets to develop. But perhaps 2 of my favorites, and I think we'll probably go a bit deeper on this later on, but that's the workspace. And think about what we were talking about before, right? In New Zealand, how everyone is now coming back to the office. So the pressure on the workspace and how that isn't changing. And then equally on the tools, like what tools, and I'm not talking about screwdrivers and nuts and bolts and things, but from a technology perspective is the tools that we're using every day to collaborate, communicate, to be more productive. So it's a super interesting piece of information and great for customers to read, and also for our partners as well to be able to share that insight with customers.
There's lots to pull out there. One thing that it refers to quite a bit is knowledge workers and connected knowledge workers. So I assume that's us, right? We're knowledge workers. But what does it mean to be connected? And maybe talk through some of those key findings that you found really interesting, or maybe some highlights.
I think there's an obvious one. Like people want to be connected. And that's in a physical sense, that we're coming into the office. And there was a period of time where people maybe felt super connected but equally isolated at the same time. And there's many instances, the mental health implications of that and how people were connected to their organization. So when we think about workspaces and coming into that environment, people want a sense of connection. What we found from the study and the surveys and the information is people who are connected are more confident, they are more productive. So organizations thinking about, well, why are we going to adapt and change the workspace? Well, it's because people who are connected are therefore more productive within that workspace, or they feel more confident. And that sort of leads us into the other piece of being connected, is if you're not in a face-to-face scenario, if you're not having that water cooler type conversation, then ultimately you're using a device to connect. And that could be an HP laptop or a headset or a handset or one of our meeting rooms as well. And so the device also becomes super important in providing that connection. And I'll give you an example of, and we had a great video on this where there's individuals within a meeting, someone is joining remotely, and there's this sense of fear from that individual that when they come off mute and they're going to make that one important comment, or they really want to join in the meeting and they want to have impact, are they using an HP device? Therefore, they've got the confidence when they come off mute, it's going to unmute their microphone, that people are going to be able to see them and hear them clearly. And that's the kind of device and technology that we're providing, that people have that confidence that they're connecting, rather than having challenges and not being able to be seen and be heard. So I think that connection comes in two ways. That's the connecting physically when you're in person in the workspace, but then also the importance of the device as well.
New Zealand is known for having a great work-life balance, and I think that's something that we have pretty well sorted in New Zealand overall. I'm sure there's lots that we can improve on there, but it does feel like we have a good balance here overall. But how can organisations leverage that strength to maybe address some of the things that James was talking about and some of those challenges that are maybe highlighted in their work relationship index?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely working in a more connected world than ever, right? And that's definitely linked towards having that work-life balance. I mean, I certainly have it. But I think when we look at, some of the byproducts of that, as James said, 28% of people have a healthy relationship with work. Now, whether that is because they feel obliged to work more because they have that flexibility, or whether it's because they're having to work more because they don't have the tools to be productive in that hybrid environment, I think leveraging some of the insights that we've taken from that study will really help organizations put a different lens on that work-life balance and flexibility. I think for us, it's really understanding it's not just about the IT, right? It's not just about the gear that's in the room or the device that they're on. It's about understanding that HR impact. It's the people impact. It's about properties and, everybody within the organization, and really looking at it just beyond a technology decision to get a better outcome for users is really, really important.
Great. And James, while we've got you here, obviously it's great to have you in New Zealand, but I'd love to pick your brains a little bit more on your view from a wider perspective again. And what are some of the collaboration challenges that you see from country to country, and how does that technology effectively come into play?
I think it's interesting in this space around how different cultures meet. And so some may be more video-centric than others. And this is a huge sweeping generalization. But if I'm on meetings with Kiwis and New Zealanders, it tends to be far more video-centric, whereas perhaps, and again, sweeping generalization, but maybe in Japan or Asia, there tends to be far less video. But ultimately, the requirements are the same, and that's around simplicity, about being heard, and about being seen. And if we take the Kiwi example, where people in the meeting rooms are booked back to back, so you need to be able to come into that meeting room. You need a simplicity, click to join, which we've been talking about for many years now, but still meeting with senior leaders. Some of them are having those challenges, the 5 minutes before the meeting actually starts, and trying to connect and kind of removing all of that. But if you're a video-centric culture, then you're looking for technology that really brings you front and center. And so auto speaker tracking and framing of individuals or framing of groups becomes important, or quality of audio. No one likes getting on a call and not being able to hear when the CEO or one of the board of directors is not able to be seen and heard. But if we flip it then to cultures that are perhaps not so video-centric, the quality of experience is still super important. And we're hearing of great examples where now with meeting recording and transcription, so individuals that you think are perhaps hiding in the background, but then going and looking at the meeting notes afterwards and really taking their time where perhaps their first language is not English. So they prefer to then go and review the meeting and do a bit of a deeper analysis, but then providing the feedback to the leadership team on having thought a little bit more about their responses and things like that. So cultural differences, but ultimately looking for the same thing around quality of experience.
Interesting. Now, speaking of technology, I can't believe it, but we're at the second generation of HP collaboration devices already, which is really exciting. And I believe there's still more coming, which is even great to hear. But what can you share with us from a forward-looking perspective? And James, what should organisations keep an eye out for?
HP, well, Poly, back in the day, we were first to market with a lot of our devices for Microsoft Teams and for Zoom. And the acquisition with HP has enabled them to come along and provide us with a huge amount of R&D capability to deliver these second generation devices. And the reason behind that really comes down to all of the things we've just been talking about, right? Being able to provide an environment that's future ready to deliver a great collaboration experience. So it does have a hardware requirement to be able to do that. So we're in that refresh stage. But as I say, it's really about being best placed to be able to cater to some of those AI features that are going to come to market. So whether it is, meeting transcription, being able to identify who's in the room, or perhaps maybe it's around providing the best image for the far end. So, it might be that the camera's at the front of the room, but ultimately if I'm talking to the back of the room, that's not going to be the best image, right? So how do we provide multiple connected devices into what is now a modular environment to provide an equal experience for the far end?
And just looping back to where you kind of started with the conversation, the price tag for something like that not that long ago was very high, right? But maybe not so much now.
Yeah, it definitely changed over the years. I'll answer your second question in a minute, but I'll just add to what Laura's saying around the HP portfolio. So we focus on collaboration from a Poly perspective, but I think what's really exciting about the One HP is the innovation that's coming across the portfolio. So for anyone who's looking at the next generation AI PC from HP, you'll start to see video and audio innovation coming from the Poly side of the business. And there's some really amazing examples where you might be on a video call or you're working on an important document, and we're now able to see if people are looking over your shoulder, and then it's going into a privacy mode. Or you might just be in a quiet environment and taking a video call from your HP laptop. And we're able to block out noise and some of the background noise is removed from the meeting. So there's this technology that we've been used to in the meeting room that's now being deployed on the HP devices across the portfolio. So I think that's a really exciting piece of information for everyone to take on. But the second piece and kind of what we are focused on and what we believe when customers are making considerations for new meeting rooms or collaboration devices, and that is really to take a look at what's happening in the background. And I'll take a couple of minutes on this. It's a bit of a story, but it gives you an example of how things are changing so quickly and how we're developing, but how also we're using the experience that we've got in the meeting room. And it goes back to COVID. Like we've mentioned that a few times, but During COVID, innovation and development of our products still continued. And so there was a lot of work that was going on around new cameras that were coming out, speaker tracking, group framing, being able to recognize a face, and then being able to bring that individual to the forefront of the meeting. And so what happened, these engineers were working in isolation. So how do you create a meeting environment when you're an engineer working on your own in a garage in Palo Alto? Well, you need cardboard cutouts. And so what was happening, they were designing the algorithms and the machine learning based on an individual. And then you saw a lot of these demos where we had Formula One drivers all sitting around the meeting room and things like that, which was great. And that's how the algorithms were designed. But as the technology was deployed in the meeting room, guess what happened? Well, if there was a picture of a person on the wall, then the camera was recognizing that as a person because the algorithms had been trained on cardboard cutouts. And so as you see the innovation develop, so we now have to teach the devices learn what is a real person, so like a 3D person rather than an image on the wall. But we've kind of taken it the next stage further. So what is a reflection? Equally, if someone is outside of a meeting room, so if you've got people walking by, then does the HP technology understands like who is a person in a room, who's outside of the room, what is just a reflection of a person as well. And so those examples, I would encourage our customers and our partners really to dive a little bit deeper into the experience, and when they're in a meeting room, appreciating some of the nuances that are happening in the background without them knowing about it. And that's where I think you really start to see the difference in terms of innovation that's coming from HP.
Incredible. We've touched on it a little bit just there, but with AI labeling being so overused at the moment, I do want us just to potentially provide a little bit of guidance for organizations around what should we actually be paying attention to, right? There's just so much hype there. So what are some of the game changers?
From an HP perspective, as I said, the things that are happening in the background that drive simplicity. I also think that there's a whole conversation around connected devices. If we think about the day in the life of most individuals, we're not sat in a meeting room all day just on a single device. We're sitting at a desk on an HP laptop. We're commuting on the bus, the train, the car. We're using a headset and things like that. So there is this transition from space to space and making that as simple and as seamless as possible. And that's really where the HP portfolio comes in, that when you're connecting your headset to your laptop, it's one organization. We're ensuring that connectivity is working and you're going to be confident that you're having a great experience. And then you're walking into the meeting room. So the technology that's going from device to device, and we're sharing that innovation across the business, and also the multiple devices that people are using. So you get that consistent experience. Doesn't matter if I'm at the airport and there's all of the background noise going on, you can clearly hear what I'm talking about. I can be heard clearly by everyone. Equally, Laura might be in the meeting room in New Zealand as well, and she's coming across. So that consistency of experience, I think, is something for everyone to consider.
And don't forget, right, AI has been around for a long time too. You know, in a lot of our solutions, we've had what we call Director AI, and that's built into all of our camera framing modes. It's been around for years, right, James?
Yeah, well, the Director AI is maybe an interesting one, and thanks for bringing that up. When the technology came out, and we think about two parts to a meeting, there's a functional side to it, but then maybe there's a bit of art around a meeting as well. Director AI, the name actually came because we believe that it's not just pointing a camera at someone and filming and transmitting that to the other person. There's a lot of kind of creativity. And I think from an HP perspective, it's, well, do you want an organization like HP and that kind of heritage? Do you want a Steven Spielberg directing your meeting room experience, or do you want a 4-year-old with a phone camera kind of thing? And that's sort of the difference. And I think what people will appreciate with the experience that we're providing.
Great. So here's the big question for both of you. Where next for collaboration in meeting rooms? There's so much exciting stuff going on, but I'd love to hear a little bit about what we might see next. And as that space continues to evolve, how can organisations prepare for what's coming?
Organisations really need to make sure that they're profiling their spaces and their people in the right way. I know we're talking about meeting spaces there, but a great example is our headsets. I'm on the road a lot, as are we all. Giving me a wired headset is not a great use of company resources to get an outcome, right? Because I'm just not going to use a wired headset. So on the flip side, I might then use a consumer-based device, which is going to have poor audio experience. And so I think profiling and understanding how your users are working to get that best outcome is really important. And we've done a lot of research into personas and making sure that we can support with that profiling. But then equally in the meeting room space, we've seen a lot of real estate change over the last 5 years. And I think how we're using those spaces today is quite different to what it was 5 years ago. So leveraging some of the capabilities that we can provide around room analytics, understanding, hey, have you got a 12-person meeting room that's consistently booked out by 3 people? Well, maybe that's not the most effective use of that space. Could we then leverage some of that information to go, hey, maybe that should be 2 6-person meeting rooms? Or actually, maybe it's always the CEO that's utilizing that space. Maybe we give them their own dedicated space. So for us, it's really about understanding, where are you at today? Understanding what's coming in the future with all of the things that we've talked around AI and, different kind of hardware elements that come into that. And then really kind of picking a path, going deep with that path. And, good example for us is our HP and Ferrari partnership. We've decided to go really, really deep with them. You'll see the HP logo nicely all over the cars, but ultimately it's enabling them to be able to look at how can they win that championship in the future, right? And leveraging those different solutions. So pick a partner, go deep, understand what that strategy is, and really start planning to deliver that over the coming years.
I like what you mentioned there around understanding those different profiles as well, because if an organisation understands those profiles, it's going to make it much easier then to zoom in on what the solution might look like. James, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, well, I'll pick up on the Ferrari partnership, because I think there's going to be more and more partnering. And I think that's the HP partnership with organizations like Ferrari around performance and speed and precision, and there's just some amazing things going on there. But then equally partnership with our customers to deliver the best outcomes, to deliver the best experience. It's partnership with our partner community and with organizations such as Ingram to really deliver the right outcomes for what customers are looking for. So you're going to see more and more collaboration and partnership. And then equally, I think on the other piece, when we talk about one HP, and that is the connection of different devices that, as I said, we're all engaged and connected to multiple devices in any one day. And so personal opinion, not anything kind of unknown, but from my perspective, I think there's going to be more consideration for what devices you're working with at a given time. And as an example, I'm at my desk, I've got my laptop, I'm then transitioning into a meeting room, And I think there's going to be a lot more happening in that space where there's recognition of where I am and which device I'm connected to, and then how that device is interacting with the other devices in the environment. And I think there's a lot that could be happening around there. And I think HP is in an amazing position to be able to deliver that connection as well.
Oh, that sounds exciting. All right, thank you so much for answering those questions. We've got one last section to go, the 5 and 5. I'll ask you the same 5 questions that I've asked every guest so far. Looking for 5-second-ish answers. Laura, I'll get you to go first, and we'll go now. So, first question, what book, app, or show would you miss the most on a deserted island?
You know, there's a work answer and then there's the truth.
Wow.
Unfortunately, too many people know the truth. So that would have to be Harry Potter. You know, I grew up watching, listening, reading, everything to do with that. And for me, it really comes down to using that to continue to have a great imagination and kind of escape a little bit of reality. So yeah, Harry Potter, not going to hide it.
Great. James?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the opposite. And in that I just think we're bombarded by so much information and data and books, videos, films, and all the rest of it, that if I were on a desert island, I'd actually take the opportunity to disconnect and I'd just look up at the stars and enjoy the moment.
Powerful. All right, your favourite movie featuring AI?
Star Wars.
Great. I like it.
I had a few that I was thinking about, and then this morning I saw a trailer for a movie that's coming out, and that's the Formula One film. And so I have a feeling that is going to be unbelievably good, and I think there's going to be a lot of enhancements in that as well, which should be exciting.
Okay. All right, I like that too. What does your social media algorithm think you're obsessed with?
Animals. It's just always animals for me. I've got so many of them. At the moment, it is horses and actually applying a nature-specific kind of living environment for them, making sure that they're able to live a happy and healthy life.
Nice.
I think mine's a little bit all over the place. It's jumping between like my personal and work life and depending on what platform I'm on. But certainly at the moment, I was in Japan recently and had the opportunity to go skiing. And so I'm being bombarded by those deep powder skiing videos right now, continuous. It makes me want to go again.
Yeah, that's good. All right, what piece of outdated tech do you miss the most? And why?
The Razor flip phone. You know,
Okay,
there was just something
yes.
about like pulling that out of your
Yes.
pocket and using your thumb to flick it open. And yeah, that's it for me.
Great.
Yeah, similar to the first answer, I think there's so much new technology coming. I've just focused on what's next and the future. And I think about all of the tech that's come and gone. It's been great, but we move on.
Okay. And then my final question for you guys, if you could share one game-changing productivity tip, what would it be?
For me, don't sit in traffic if you don't need to. I mean, I have a long commute, so manage your day. We've got the tools to do it, so don't sit in traffic if you don't have to.
Good call.
For me, and I thought about this a little bit, but what I'd like to push is for people to be bold and to turn on video. Like we know that when people are in a meeting, there's a lot of non-verbal communication that is going on. So if anyone is really trying to push a point across, and they may be a little bit nervous and maybe they're not using it before, but honestly, be bold, turn on that video and make an impression.
Nice. I like that. I think you can communicate a lot with even just your eyebrows. So that makes a lot of sense. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to have you along. Look forward to seeing you again. And thanks for coming to New Zealand.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks for tuning in today, and a special thanks to HP for sponsoring this episode. If there are any guests or topics you'd like to see featured, connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll find the links in the description. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.